My name is Eigil Bryld, and I'm delighted to be here on the Cinematography podcast.
The following podcast contains explicit language. You're listening to the Cinematography podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image and the people who make it happen. Coming to you from the world headquarters of Hot Rod Cameras in Hollywood, California, are your hosts, Ben Rock and Ilya Friedman.
Hey, Mr. Ben Rock, how are you doing?
I'm just ducky. How are you doing?
I'm glad you're ducky. I'm doing fine. Here we are again in beautiful webcam glory.
here on beautiful downtown Zoom.
Downtown Zoom. Once again, hey, we have another episode of the Cinematography podcast, and on the show today is Eigil Bryld. I spoke to him, and we had a great conversation all about the new Alexander Payne movie, which he just shot, called The Holdovers.
I haven't seen it yet, but I'm dying to see it. It looks so good.
I loved it. It's really good. And I'm going to highly recommend that you go out and see it. It's playing in theaters right now, and it's absolutely worth seeing.
And now, Close Focus.
So, Ben, what is our close focus today? What do we have to talk about?
Well, it's kind of it's a weird melange of things that we've talked about on Close Focus all coming together. So we have the strike, which is now just SAG-AFTRA, obviously, as the Writers Guild has stopped striking. And their big hang up, of course, is AI. Apparently, that's the thing that they can't get on the same page with the AMPTP companies about. And in the same week, we have two interesting cases of AI. The first one was Scarlett Johansson suing someone for using, I believe, just her voice, her vocal likeness in an AI ad that was released on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X, on Twitter. And the other one, which no one's upset about, but I find kind of odd, is Paul McCartney released a new Beatles song that was made in part thanks to AI, not AI creating a John Lennon vocal, but in fact AI isolating a John Lennon vocal from a 50-year-old recording. Because in case you're keeping track, I believe John Lennon died like 46 years ago or something. So it's been a minute. And so they made a new Beatles song, and Peter Jackson himself directed the, I'm just going to go ahead and call it, kind of disturbing, unintentionally disturbing Beatles music video. The song is called Now and Then. As a song, it's fine. It's not going to be anyone's favorite Beatles song. If you're a Beatles,
does it feel like a money grab where it was like, hey, here's this old song, and we're going to put it together and put it out into the world?
I don't know. I mean, like a money grab by people who are impossibly rich. Like,
I know, it's like they don't need the money.
Yeah,
it's like, you know.
I think that it's Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr genuinely wanting to do another Beatles song. I mean, if you recall, I guess it's about 30 years ago, they made two Beatles tracks, Free as a Bird, and I think the other one was called Real Love. And at that time, George Harrison was still alive, and they used John Lennon demos. And if you listen to those songs, they sound kind of thin and tinny, and they had a hard time isolating his voice and making it sound as rich and full as if he were recorded, even on microphones as good as the ones you and I are using, because he probably in 1970 didn't have that. This one, again, if you saw the Beatles documentary that Peter Jackson made, and if you haven't, I believe it's on Disney Plus, it's pretty interesting. And what Peter Jackson's company was able to do was come up with the technology to use AI to separate voices. And in fact, they could separate voices and instruments of the Beatles in a very informal setting where they're just dicking around and trying to find the songs and, talking over each other. And they were able to independently modulate and set levels for their voices, for their instruments, and all that stuff. They were able to give it a mix as if it had been recorded in isolation in the studio. I have no problem with Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, and I assume full cooperation from the John Lennon estate and the George Harrison estate making the song. It's just the video super creepy because they're putting the four Beatles in it together, and they're making especially John Lennon kind of dance around in an odd way, and it's hard to describe. I recommend that people check it out. I'm not here to crap on it, but I think that it's interesting that AI here in this week, we have AI being used for good, I'll say, to make a new Beatles track. certainly not harming anyone. And I think that it's a perfectly good use of AI to say like, hey, let's isolate a vocal and do something interesting with it. And, you could pull a vocal from a demo that's 50 years old. Imagine what you can do with something that was recorded on modern equipment. And then you have, Scarlett Johansson, one of the first and definitely not the last celebrity to have her likeness stolen using AI. And meanwhile, there was scuttlebutt. The butts were scuttling about the SAG after strike possibly ending this week or maybe next. And
the studios, I should say the AMPTP said this was their last, best, and final offer, which then SAG rejected, saying that you're only paying us to scan actors, not to actually use or reuse their likeness. Okay. And they said that's a hard pass.
Yeah, well, and I agree with them. I mean, I feel like, if anyone on earth, if I could bring you in, whatever your job is, and digitally sample you doing your job and then say, oh, by the way, your job is irrelevant now because I have everything I need to continue doing your job indefinitely without you, and I'm also not going to pay you for it, who would participate in that? I don't get that at all. But I think that no matter what you do, I think AI is kind of a thing that we're going to be talking about for a minute, even though it is my personal opinion, AI is going to plateau out eventually. It's not going to be replacing everything like we think it is. But I believe strongly that guardrails need to be put on it. And I'm not alone. Our government, the Biden administration, recently has done a huge crackdown on AI. And I was listening to the New York Times podcast about technology called Hard Fork, which I recommend to anyone who's into this stuff. And in last week's episode, one of them went to the White House for a press briefing about this. And they were saying that they know that ChatGPT and Midjourney and all these things, that horse has left the barn. They're not trying to regulate what's already out there. They're trying to head off what's coming next. In a government that tends to be way behind the curve when it comes to new technology stuff, it's nice to know that they're at least trying to set up guardrails and create accountabilities and stuff like that, because it's a technology that's easy as hell to abuse. The fact that Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr have, Peter Jackson's groundbreaking audio technology that was used to isolate their vocals, that's cool. But we all know that the way this stuff goes is, in 6 weeks, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, we'll all have exactly what Peter Jackson had. We'll all have the highest end version of that at our disposal. And then what? When you get to the point where you can fake literally anything using AI with anyone's voice and it sounds exactly like the real thing, I do think it's important to get those guardrails up, to be thinking about, where it goes from here. I mean, I love how Peter Jackson used AI to isolate their vocals in that movie, but I don't like the idea that somebody could do that, with public
create
figures.
Whatever, put it out wherever, impersonate whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
It's scary. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
So anyway, that's about that.
Yeah. I think that we're going to talk more about this just in the coming months and years, because it's all unfolding.
Yeah.
And I don't actually want to belabor it too much. I want to get to the interview, but actually just as a little preface, Eigil's been around for a long time, and he's shot a lot of things. I think he first came on my radar with a movie called In Bruges he shot.
Oh, I love that movie.
And then really I was paying attention to Eigil. God, it must have been probably 2013, something like that, when House of Cards debuted. He shot the entire first season of House of Cards.
Oh, wow.
Which, looks incredible. And he's gone on to do a ton of other movies, including Ocean's 8, which is a big, studio movie. And now with the new Alexander Payne film, The Holdovers, it's just such a fantastic looking movie. And it was really great to talk to him. I don't want to belabor this anymore. I want to get to the interview. So here's my interview with Eigil Bryld.
Here we go.
The Cinematography Podcast Interview.
I'm joined now by Eigil Bryld. Welcome to the Cinematography Podcast.
Thanks, pleasure to be here.
Eigil, you have been in the industry a long time and you've worked a ton in different movies, but I gotta say that your new movie, The Holdovers, is something really, really special. And it's a period piece that's set in the early 1970s. Can you give our listeners just a really quick, log line, 30-second version of what this movie's about?
It's a Christmas movie. It's set in a boarding school, for a high school boarding school in the early 70s. And the main character is Professor Hunham, who is a disgruntled older professor in ancient philosophy, ancient civilizations, and the winter break is coming up, and the kids all sort of go back to their respective families, but some of the kids aren't so fortunate and are stuck at the school, and that's the canvas for the story, and it's really a film about friendship and family and belonging, and to a certain degree coming of age as well. But it is a comedy. It's very funny, but also very heartfelt and textured and very much character driven.
I think that's a great way to describe it. It's also the latest movie from Alexander Payne, one of my favorite directors, and probably I'd say my favorite movie since Nebraska. And it's interesting that there's a theme that sort of goes through the Holdovers about things that are old. If you don't know the past, you're not going to understand your present or your future. And I kept, as I was watching this, feeling like this movie has little bits of other Alexander Payne movies that I love, little bits of stuff of like Election, and little bit of stuff of like The Journey, of like Sideways and Nebraska, and it fits together in what, and I know this is high praise here, but it feels so smart. This feels like such a smart, well-crafted, well-put-together movie, and your contribution to that too, through the flow and the aesthetic and everything, is just, I feel like, at the absolute top of his game, like some of the best stuff I've ever seen. So talk a little bit about your collaboration and how the look for the movie comes together, and I would say even more importantly, sort of the shot design of how you guys are flowing from one shot to the next. Is it's so intentional. It's clearly not all just figured out on the fly. Talk a little bit about this relationship and how the look comes to be.
I mean, it's a true delight to work with Alexander, because he is very much what his movies are as well. He's a really he has a great sense of humor, but he's a very smart and decent person. He really respects everybody on set, and he knows all the name of all the extras. And when they come back the next morning, he'll greet them with their name and he'll ask them where they're from. And he's very interested in people, and I think that's sort of the thread in his movies as well. He really has. He's not looking down at people. He's not judging anybody. He's generally interested in sort of opening a window and looking into people's lives with all their complexities and the way. I mean, I had known Alexander for a couple of years because we've been sort of flirting with doing a few different projects that sort of didn't happen for various reasons, COVID, and so I was on another film and I got the script for The Holdovers, and it's just it's such a beautiful script in its simplicity and its character development, and it seems very. I mean, obviously Alexander didn't write it himself unusually, but it just read very much like an Alexander Payne movie. So, and I've always been of a sort of similar philosophy where everything you sort of do and all your decisions have to be sort of driven by the character and by the story. I don't like to ever move the camera unless I'm revealing something or unless I've never really been in any of what I do been interested in sort of just sort of creating superficial sort of energy or whatever. Everything has to sort of be deliberate and intentional. And that's very much Alexander's method as well. So it's very hands-on as well. We obviously have talked about the script, and first and foremost, obviously, how do we actually make this look like a film that was shot in 1970, as opposed to just being sort of window dressing and sort of just making it the way, because I think everybody has a recollection of what the 70s looked like, but that's probably very far from what movies actually looked like back then. So we looked at a lot of references, obviously a lot of Hal Ashby movies, The Last Detail, The Landlord, and really talking about more than sort of just the technical stuff, just sort of what the beauty of filmmaking of that era, which is, for me, is sort of the golden era. So the process was very much finding locations, start building the universe, looking, figuring out what is this small town that's next to the campus? Where is the bar? What does the bar look like? And a lot of the shots in the movie is obviously kind of portraits, because it is an ensemble. So it's sort of variations on portraits. Sometimes it's even a group shot where we sort of wanted to isolate each, because they're not always, they start out as not being sort of quite unfriendly terms. So we wanted to sort of the sense of separation, and at other times we wanted to bring them together. But first and foremost is sort of the placement of the camera. That's number one. And we used a very limited sort of set of focal lengths. I mean, a lot of the close-ups are done on a 55, and that sort of became the obvious go-to lens. So a lot of the process was about sort of making it simple, erasing sort of distractions and really sort of condensing and almost like making a broth. We used a lot of cooking sort of references. We kept it sort of light and playful mostly, on which sort of fits the tone of the movie as well.
For sure. It's definitely a light and playful movie in moments, and it also shifts tones quite elegantly from scene to scene sometimes. And you definitely talked a bit about, production design and how making a movie that feels very much authentic to the 1970s. Go into a little bit more detail about your process for what the 1970s looks like, because I remember it, of course, well as anyone my age. And I know that my memories are influenced by the movies that I see and influenced by different people's interpretations of what that time was. But I really enjoyed this particular look of the 1970s. I really felt like it captured something authentic to this East Coast sort of world that wasn't just like a nostalgic, grainy movie sort of feel. Talk a little bit about your, the choices that led you to this point.
I mean, first and foremost, because in the beginning I was just thinking, we'll just do it exactly like, we'll use same lenses, the same cameras. Obviously, you can't quite use the same film, but then more and more, I realized that obviously you can't really travel back in time, and it made me realize that it was really more about the spirit of the time. I think what really made that era so fantastic was the sort of the sense of freedom, where people would go in and shoot a movie in the street handheld. They would tell stories that hadn't been told before. It was the rules got kicked out of the window. So our thinking was that we would be like a mid-budget movie, independent movie shot in the early 70s. So we really designed it about sort of an approach that seemed like it was basically available light. And we shot digital. We tested both 35mm and 16mm. But even if when we shot on film, we would have to do so many digital manipulations down the road to create the sort of the look of the film stock of the early 70s. We would have to degrain the film and then add grain to it again. Then I thought that was really ironic. So we ended up, rather than doing that, I thought, well, I'd rather actually have the lot then and actually create the lot so I have a better sense of what I'm doing. And so Joe Gowler, my colorist, has done a lot of Criterion restorations. So he knows a lot about what happens to the film when it sits around for 50 years. You get the sort of yellow tonality in the highlights, and so we had a lot of that built in from the get-go. But I wasn't also trying. I always operate myself, and this is all one camera. On this one, I tried not to sort of let myself be a slave to the screen. I really tried to use my eyes. And one of the dangers of digital is that you end up sort of lighting with your eyes as opposed to your brain. So I was really sort of being dogmatic with staying true to the premise and our choices, as opposed to ironing out every little wrinkle or exerting too much control over sort of tiny details.
Yeah, I think that really comes through, and it feels so authentic. We don't usually dwell too much into cameras and lenses, but it's so authentic to me. And I know some people don't like to give away their secret sauce, but can you mention, I know it's a Panavision, or Panavision has their logo at the end of this, but did you choose some older special Dan Sasaki special tweaked lenses, or did you pick something off the shelf and decide to create more of the look and post? How did you settle the technical aspect of camera choice and lens into this look of the show?
After we sort of chose to go digital, it shot on an Arri Alexa Mini, so pretty standard. I mean, I'm sort of used to that camera, and then we tested sort of period lenses, but we ended up using Panavision H series. But it didn't have too much crazy stuff going on, because I didn't really want it to sort of be overly nostalgic or sentimental. So I didn't want it to feel like we're looking through a frosty pane or whatever. Because one of the things we tend to forget with the 70s, because in the 70s, they would do everything to avoid grain. I mean, it's ironic nowadays, everybody's fighting to have grainy images. They would fight to have the best possible lenses, and now there's this gold rush for old lenses with lots of mistakes in, and where half of it is not really in focus or whatever. So I didn't want the lens to sort of get in the way of with the danger specifically of making it sort of seem sentimental or nostalgic, because that is a danger when you sort of dwell into this territory of period film and 70s and making it sort of vintage looking.
Yeah. I'm familiar with the H series. They're very lovely lenses. I think the evidence is on the screen. It's a beautiful choice. Many of them are slower lenses, slower as far as primes go, except for that 55, which is ridiculously fast. But I got the feeling that you probably didn't live at the absolute, T1 opening of that 55 for most of this movie. It has definitely the evoked the feeling, at least to me, of shows that I've seen at that time, which frankly, they didn't have access to all of those really fast lenses. Not at least as many options as we have today. And it's so authentic. It's a really wonderful feel. I want to shift gears just a bit here and talk a little bit about you and how you came to choose this career and how you decided that this is something that really was going to be your work and your passion.
I mean, it took me a little while. For a long time, I thought I was going to be a journalist and I wanted to do documentary films. I mean, I think partly because I grew up in a small town in Denmark and I was really eager to get out of this place. And my brother, who I loved, he moved to Copenhagen, so I felt like Copenhagen. I didn't want to follow his be on his coattails. So by chance, I met this guy who was at a college in Wales actually doing documentary photography. I thought I was going to do documentary films basically. So I went to college in Wales, and then there was a really great art house cinema there, Chapter Cinema, that showed all these brilliant movies, and that's really sort of became an eye-opener to me, because I thought, to me, working in the movie business, my parents were academics, so I didn't even know there was anything called a film school, in like a national film school. So this college experience was sort of really an eye-opener, and I just love sort of the to me, in cinematography, there's sort of it's almost like a sort of a performance art in a way, because you have to work with the elements, you have to work with all these humans, you have to make all these different energies and all these characters and the past and the present and the future all come together at one sort of single point in a way, and in a specific time as well, and sort of capture it in your camera. And I just have real sort of pleasure when that's working out, and all the sun and the wind and or whatever, the light and when all those elements sort of come together. And I think that's just a tremendous pleasure. And also working in film is such a diverse group of people, both in terms of people behind the camera and in front of the camera as well. I just think it's a real treat to have colleagues who are so sort of different in their skills and personalities, and because it is a big circus in a way, and you need all these capabilities and talents, and I feel very fortunate to have been able to make a living out of that, doing what I do.
When you first read the script, did that sort of tickle an academic funny bone for you? The script is so funny for this movie. Talk about when you first read it and decided that this is something you really wanted to do.
I mean, I definitely, most of all, I was laughing a lot when I read it, but I think what the script did, and hopefully the movie as well, it takes you to these places. It doesn't drag you down an alley and then force feed you. You just sort of, it sort of sneaks up on you in a very sort of elegant way. And so I was just sort of constantly moved when I read the script, and it really sort of stuck with me and it resonated with me. And I think that the character sort of stayed in me, and it was just so obvious that there was so much to work with and lots of avenues within it. I would be terribly bored if I read something and I knew exactly, I'll just do this and this and this and this, and that's how it's going to work. That would totally kill my process, because I have to be a little bit on thin ice, and I have to always sort of be able to push myself and think, find a sense of connection and sort of building that whole sort of framework and pushing it, and I think a good script has all those sort of it doesn't give you every answer, it doesn't close every door, it's still sort of vibrates, I guess, is one way of putting it.
I know a lot of people don't like to talk about sort of the competition of movies, which is like the Academy Awards. But every year there is a movie that comes out that I see. And it's not necessarily the biggest, buzziest movie that people talk about Oscar season, but this is, when I left the theater, I was like, Academy voters are going to respond well to this. I really think that the Oscar race is now on. I feel like there is going to be a lot of discussion about this movie. I'm curious if you've had a chance to see it with a paying audience yet. I'm sure you've seen the movie many times, but have you had a chance to see it in a theater with the public? Have you gauged their reaction at all? Do you ever do that?
I haven't. I mean, I'm in London and it was showing for 2,000 people at the London Film Festival. But unfortunately, I was on night shoot, so I was heartbroken. But I met with Alexander the day after, and he was telling me what a great reception. And the only thing he was upset about was that people were laughing so much that they were missing the line after or whatever. So he wasn't. But no, I haven't myself seen it with a huge audience, which I really want to. But it hasn't come out in England yet, so I haven't had the opportunity. But that's what I want to, because I want to, more than I want to see the movie, I want to see the audience seeing the movie.
Yeah, it's really wonderful work. And the Oscar race is on now. I feel like that, really that this is going to be the movie that tracks. I could be wrong, but as people start to get out to the movie theaters, I think it's a wonderful length of time. Some movies are very, very long, which can sometimes be taxing, even if they're good. This movie never felt long to me. It's put together so fantastically. Your work in it is impeccable, and Paul Giamatti and the entire cast is just so fantastic. I expect that there's going to be a lot of conversation coming up in the next few months about the Holdovers. Eigil Bryld, thank you so much for being on the show. It's a wonderful achievement, and I really can't wait to see how things shake out.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it so much, and I enjoyed talking to you. It was an honor to be on your show.
All right, so that was Eigil Bryld. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And everyone go see The Holdovers, and everyone go see In Bruges. Holy crap. I love that movie. I mean, I lit up when you said that he shot In Bruges. I think that movie is a freaking masterpiece.
Yeah, I saw it in the theater. So yeah, it was.
Yeah, I saw it in the theater too. Pretty amazing stuff.
And now, short ends.
All right, so Ben, what's going on in Ben Rock world? What is your obsession this week? What do you got going on?
Well, I want to put a plug in for a good friend of mine, Joe Lynch. And maybe this extends the Halloween season by a week or so for some people. Joe Lynch,
Halloween is over.
Not in my heart.
Yeah, so, I was going to say Halloween. There's a lot of people out there who are big Halloweeners. I think that's the right term, right? Halloweener.
Oh no, we prefer that. Yeah.
Or is it Halloweeny? I don't remember what it is. But
either does. It's like Trek or Trekkie. We're okay with either one. You
can tell the hardcore people, the Halloweeners, because October 1, house is decorated, yards decorated. They're maximizing the amount of time they have available for Halloween. And then, let me tell you, Dia de los Muertos, November 1st, and then pretty much it has to come down because now it's Thanksgiving.
I still have my Halloween decorations up.
I've got a neighbor who keeps a guillotine in their front yard up all the way through Christmas, which I think is awesome because my kids go and make a snowman and put the snowman in the guillotine, which is great. That's
amazing. Yeah, we have a neighbor who has a skeleton playing a piano in their yard year round.
Oh, fantastic.
And then they're in our neighborhood, and we have a neighborhood that there are a few houses that go pretty all out for Halloween. Theirs is like a Halloween attraction. Like there's a line to get into it. It's pretty amazing.
All right. I didn't mean to derail your short end here. What is your short end?
So my short end is a movie that came out right before Halloween called Suitable Flesh. And it's awesome.
Of course.
It's I love this movie.
As opposed to Unsuitable Flesh.
Well, it is, when you see the movie, it's a very clever play on words because it's sort of it's based on an H.P. Lovecraft story called The Thing at the Doorstep. And it's about basically a entity who basically body hops and can take over one body and another body and another body. And so your flesh is its suit. Get it? That's the joke.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
Yeah. So my friend Joe Lynch, who hosts his own podcast, by the way, he's the co-host of The Movie Crypt along with Adam Green. He made this movie. Now, this was originally a movie that was going to be made by one of my favorite people I ever got to work with, Stuart Gordon, who unfortunately passed away about 3 years ago. It was written by Dennis Paoli, who wrote many of Stewart's biggest movies, including Reanimator, From Beyond, and Dagon, and I believe Castle Freak. And Dennis Paoli is freaking amazing. The movie stars Heather Graham, and it is such a brilliant melding. It's a mind meld of what makes Joe Lynch's movies awesome and fun. Like, he's made movies like Mayhem and Everly, and then merged with sort of the Stuart Gordon aesthetic. And in fact, a lot of people from Stuart's repertory company of actors, including the amazing Barbara Crampton, who goes all the way back to Reanimator and From Beyond, and she's in a bunch of them, and Chris McKenna and Graham Skipper, who are people who've worked with Stewart a bunch. And it's a lot of fun. It also has Bruce Davidson, and like I said, it stars Heather Graham. And,
oh, wow.
And it's bonkers if you like that kind of movie, which is to say a horror movie that's got a good sense of humor and also is kind of sexy. Oh, and one more shout out.
It's sexy.
Yes.
Suitable Flesh is sexy.
I
just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Okay.
And I should mention also, it was shot by somebody named David Matthews, who I was a big fan of his band in the 90s. So I'm glad that he's keeping it going. No laugh. No Dave Matthews. Nothing.
It zoomed right past me. Yeah, I have to admit, I was not a big. I didn't listen to Dave Matthews. I've never owned a Dave Matthews ever.
I am also not a fan of the musician Dave Matthews, but
but your friend Dave Matthews, yeah.
But well, he's not my friend. I've never met him. We could have him on the show maybe someday. I think his shooting of it, like, it's beautiful, it's sexy. It's dark, and it goes nice and surreal in many places. I just adore this movie. It's definitely in my top. Basically, this and Talk to Me are probably my two favorite horror movies I've seen this year. And I can't say enough good things about it. And so I'm just encouraging people, if you are so inclined as I am to seek this kind of thing out, definitely check out Suitable Flesh.
Wow. Okay. Suitable Flesh. Where would someone find that?
It's going to be on Shudder, I think, in a month or so. Like right now, you would need to rent it on
VOD,
Amazon, or wherever you get that kind of stuff. Nothing wrong with waiting for it to be on Shudder if you're a Shudder subscriber. It was released by Shudder, and I don't know if it's still playing in theaters. It was in theaters last week, and I did see this on the big screen. I saw it in a theater, and it was worth it. But check your local listing, see if it's playing in theaters. If it is, please go see it. So, Ilya, what is your short end this week?
My short end this week is a movie called Quiz Lady. I just saw Quiz Lady on Hulu, and it's got kind of an interesting, story about how it came to be. It's directed by Jessica Yu, who's been primarily a television director for many years. But this feature film stars Awkwafina and Sandra Oh, both playing against type, where Sandra Oh, who's usually kind of the straight person, plays the zany, sort of crazy sidekick, and Awkwafina, who usually plays that sort of, a little bit maybe more over the top. Now she's playing it straight, very, very toned down, and they play sisters, and it's sort of a farcical, zany, lighthearted, low stakes movie. I mean, you watch this movie and you're not biting your nails, edge of your seat, wondering what's going to happen. It's a comedy. It's a very broad, light comedy, but it's got a certain charm to it. And if you're into that sort of like light, broad humor, I mean, I'd definitely say it kind of falls into the same sort of realm as something like maybe like a Bridesmaids or many Will Ferrell movies. And Will Ferrell's in this, and he gets to play sort of like a Alex Trebek style quiz show host sort of character, which he has a ton of experience doing, sort of like an Alex Trebek impersonation on SNL. This is not that. It's his own character, but he does play the quiz master. And if you're looking for turn off your brain, have a few laughs, high key lighting, broad humor, Quiz Lady, you could do a lot worse. It got the green light in 2020, back when 20th Century Fox was a studio. It was also, for a little while, it seemed like it was going to be a Netflix production. and ends up on Hulu. So anyway, it premiered at Toronto. Did the little festival run, and now anyone could watch it. It definitely feels like something maybe you would have seen in a theater years ago. It had like a $24 million budget, but now it is direct to Hulu, which for a lot of people they already have Hulu, either ad or unad supported. It's an inexpensive streaming service. And Quiz Lady, it's got a really great cameo by Tony Hale. And I won't say anything about Tony Hale. Just is this fantastic, comedic force in the movie. And actually, posthumously, I think this is the last movie of Paul Rubens. Paul Rubens has got a little cameo in it too. And
way to bum me out.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bum you. But Paul Rubens has just like this little tiny moment in the movie, and it's a nice sort of like capper on the whole thing. So anyway, it is my short end this week. Quiz Lady, if you're looking for something that's zany, a little bit farcical, not edge of your seat riveting, it's like, you had a long day at work, you just want to sit down and laugh, you could do a lot worse. Quiz Lady.
Awesome. Make it a double feature with suitable flesh.
I think that might be a little bit whiplash for some of our audience members, but sure.
Look,
yeah.
You're talking about a world that went for Barbenheimer. I think that the Quiz Ladyal flesh, that Quiz Ladyal flesh, that can catch on, right? That's a thing, right?
Yeah, that's a thing.
It'll totally catch on.
All right. So Ben, where can people find you if they want to track you down?
Go to benrock.com. All my stuff is at benrock.com. And if you want to find me on social media, I'm usually at Neptune Salad, except on Threads, where it's following my Benjamin_Rock, because I never really thought Instagram was going to catch on. Anyway, Ilya, where can people find you?
They can find me over at Hot Rod Cameras, sponsor of this fine show, hotrodcameras.com, where you can get all kinds of camera equipment, lighting equipment, sound equipment, you name it. Or if you just need some advice, people call just for advice sometimes.
I mean, like personal advice? Like you're trying to make
It's not exactly Miss Manners or Dear Abby, but it is.
We could start
filmmaking advice.
Yeah, we could have like a Dear Abby segment. Dear Ilya, and people could write in and give their technical questions, and then you could give them thoughtful answers. That could be like a whole new segment that we start doing.
We haven't done viewer mail in a while. I'll have to get on that with Alana, see if there's some stuff that maybe there's some stuff out there, some burning questions that I don't even know about. So anyway, so Ben, who do we have to thank? Who made this show possible?
Well, the same person who makes it possible every week, who is Alana Cody. She's kicking all the ass, getting us all these interviews. We have some pretty amazing big ones coming up, as well as this one. Not that this one wasn't huge. And we should also thank Ben Katz, our editor, who kicks all the ass as well and makes us not sound and apparently look like idiots now that we're doing the YouTube thing.
There's only so much he can do.
Please, somebody.
He's going to get some AI going here over all this.
I know.
It's going to be like
seriously, help me Mid-Journey. You're my only hope. And lastly, but never leastly, we should thank Kays Alatrachi. Go to musicbykays.com, hire him to score your next project, or do your color correction, or do visual effects, or if you really want, have him make the whole thing. He can direct it. He doesn't like me talking about this, but he's an excellent sound designer. He's sound designed a couple of projects that I've worked on. He doesn't really like talking about the sound design thing, but he's actually pretty good at it. So he could direct it for you. He could record the sound. He could probably shoot it for you. I know that he usually works with a DP though. So
it's so crazy how there's some people out there who can do all those jobs, like all of them, who do all the jobs. I don't get it.
Well, it's like when Russell Carpenter was on and he confirmed our suspicion about James Cameron, that James Cameron could literally fire anyone on the crew and take over their job. Kays is kind of like our own personal James Cameron. I think that's fair to say.
I think that's actually super accurate, and I'm pretty sure that Kays Alatrachi could probably, if he had to like fire craft service and become craft service, his craft service would be like magnificent. He'd be making like wood-fired pizzas.
My God, the pizza that he makes is just to die for. It's amazing. So anyway, Elliot, that's about enough of that. Could you take us out?
Thanks for watching.
Whoa,
I know, crazy. I think we need a new tagline. Maybe thanks for watching, thanks for listening. It's just
thanks for consuming our content.
Thanks for coming out and
smash that like.
Ooh, yeah.
Don't smash anything.
There's some cringe there.
I can't with the smash the like.
Bye.
See ya.
This has been the Cinematography Podcast, presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory on the web at hotrodcameras.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on iTunes and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.